For over 15 years, Saturdays and Illegal Curve have been synonymous with one another. With insight, analysis, and interviews regarding the Winnipeg Jets, the Manitoba Moose, and all around the NHL, here are Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mindell. The Illegal Curve Hockey Show, presented by Play Now, the official sports betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets, starts now.
Well, I was here on time. Ezra was here on time. But beep, beep, beep. That's the sound of the bus being run over Dave Minuk, who just casually strolls in at whatever time he so chooses to join the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. What do you think about that level of professionalism, Mr. Ginsburg? Because to me, that seems like he should be fined in the kangaroo court that is Illegal Curve.
Yeah, we'll fine you a few shekels, Dave, for being late. Yeah, Dave came in right at like it was about 9:01, right? And then we went live at 9:02.
But like casual.
Look, Dave is the MVP of Illegal Curve. We can't give him that hard of a time. He's almost always on time, and he is the backbone of this organization. So, Dave, it's okay if you're late once a year.
All right, thank you guys. Appreciate it. I'll try to be less tardy.
Say it aloud. He said it. I don't.
Do you understand how you understand how majority works, right? I got Big Daddy. We're good. We got 2 out of 3. In fact, actually, Drew, I got some news for you. You're fired.
Fair enough. We had a good run. Good night, folks. Family, I'm coming upstairs.
And bye, Drew.
And look, now you've screwed it all up. I'm on the bottom. There you go. Switch it around. It's
you like being on the bottom, though, Drew.
Touche, Ezzy. Good morning, Winnipeg. Good morning, Manitoba. And for all those joining us live this morning on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms, we say good morning, universe, and welcome to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show with Dave Minuk, with Ezra Ginsburg. I'm your host, Drew Mindell, here for the next couple of hours, talk everything to do with the Winnipeg Jets. Big sports day here in Peg City. The Jets look to make NHL history this afternoon against the Dallas Stars. The Bombers look to make it to the 5th consecutive Grey Cup a little bit later this evening against the dreaded rivals of Saskatchewan. It's going to be a big day. And of course, the Moose are in action in Texas a little bit later on tonight. So we have you covered from 9 a.m. all the way through 11 p.m. tonight with all the latest Jets, Bombers, Moose news here with Illegal Curve. Less so on the Bomber stuff, but we're just fans of the Bombers more than anything. Not so
Boys, we might have to bring back the illegal procedure website. Remember that?
Yeah, it was a dark time, and I think other people have that handled at this point in time. I don't think we don't need. I don't think we need to jump into that lane right now. We'll stay with our lane, which is of course the Winnipeg Jets and the potential for history to be made this afternoon. The Jets trying to become the first ever NHL team to win 14 of their first 15 regular season games to start the season. Let me ask you guys this. It's a big game against the Dallas Stars, a division rival. The division rivalry week continues after they defeated Utah, after they defeated Colorado. Does this record matter? Is this just sort of a funny sort of candy shop thing to discuss? Or do you think that this record really resonates and maybe matters a little bit within the dressing room of the Winnipeg Jets?
It's a good question. I mean, there's I guess 2 ways to approach it, right? Of course, it matters in terms of determining whether you're going to go to the playoffs and obviously how well you're playing. But in terms of what the Jets' ultimate goal is, boys, obviously doesn't matter. The goal is the Stanley Cup. This Jets team is not built just to get into the playoffs, win the President's Trophy, maybe get to the second round. This team has Stanley Cup aspirations, right? Like Mark Scheifele and Connor Hellebuyck didn't sign their long-term deals just to be a playoff team every year. These guys haven't ever won a Stanley Cup. That's the ultimate goal. And not just for Scheifele and Hellebuyck, right? Whether it's Kyle Connor, Nick Ehlers, Neil Pionk, any veteran on this team, and not to mention the young guys on this team, everybody wants to win the Stanley Cup. So obviously the ultimate goal is that. But I mean, guys, it's showing you that the continuation of their play from the end of last season really hasn't stopped at all, and they've improved. And I think, one of the big things we talked about was the special teams. We know the penalty kill isn't exactly where they want it to be at this moment. It was earlier in the season, but certainly the power play guys, it's like night and day, right? And this makes this Jets team so much more dangerous because now you expect the Jets to score. If they get a couple of power play opportunities in a game, you expect them to score once, right? They're at around 45%. So, I mean, people are really excited in this city and this market, and, for Jets fans everywhere, people are really excited. But you do obviously have to keep in mind that, this is just a precursor to the playoffs. So the Jets aren't going to finish the season 81-1, Dave, but still, you have to like the if you want to call it the process or the way that they're playing, because as far as I'm concerned, they've really only had 2 bad games this year, the Toronto game and the last game. And I'm going to call it a bad game because they were lucky to win that one.
Well, you don't have to be lucky when you have Connor Hellebuck, Ezzy, but I understand the point you're making, and it's a good one because while they had a good
sorry, Dave Bucky to win that one.
Yes, but while they had a good first period, you're right. They were outclassed by Colorado in the second and third, and it's one of those situations. If you're the Jets, honestly, I don't think it matters. I mean, if you ask the players, and we tend to ask them sometimes about this type of thing, I think that maybe they get a kick out of it, but ultimately, as Ed said, I think the prize is, and Doug put it, and I highlighted that comment, but I think folks want to win the Stanley Cup. And no, look, to your point, Drew, the process matters. It's the question that Mike McIntyre asked Scott O'Neill yesterday in our media availability with him, because he said, like, you're up 1-0, you change the lines. You're winning. It's not often you see a coach make sort of changes to a winning formula, even though they were being outplayed, and Connor Hellebuck was the reason why they were in that game still. But from that perspective, I think that you want to see this Jets team not be satisfied. And that was kind of the point, I believe, of Mike's questioning, that you want to see that, okay, we got the win. We added the 2 points. It's important. But what did we, and we talked about it with Mason Appleton as well as Mark Scheifele yesterday. Of course, both interviews on YouTube, no big deal. But the truth is that these guys know that, and as I think the critical factor is, there are always going to be different ways that you win a hockey game. Right? You win a hockey game because you have the best goaltender in the world. So he keeps you in it for the last 2 periods. That's fantastic. Other games where Hellebuck's been fine, the team has done it. And we've seen that more often than not through the 13-1 start to this season. But you want to make sure that you're playing, again, you want to have a good game. You don't want to have a lucky game against Dallas. You want to have a solid game against a divisional rival who doesn't play as fast as Colorado does, but it's still going to be a tough test. So that, to me, is the question, Drew. It's like the process, not necessarily the results, even though the results are important, but you want to make sure that your process is consistent. And that's what this Jet team, whether they were playing against, Detroit or Chicago or Minnesota or Colorado, you want that process to be the same. And the one sense as I got from being around the players yesterday was, they want to bounce it back. They want to bounce back from treat Colorado, like you pointed out, like it was the game against Toronto. Even though they won the game and got the 2 points, they knew they didn't play their best game. So they want to have a game today against Dallas, similar to what they did against Detroit. And that is what you're looking for when they do battle at 2:00 this afternoon.
And sorry, just to go back to, Drew's original question, like, what does this really mean? Like, what does the 13-1 start actually mean? Like, that kind of goes back to what Dave and I are both saying. Like, obviously you love the fact that you've banked all of these points and you're way ahead of your rivals, like 14 points ahead of the Colorado Avalanche. Like, sorry, the Avalanche are not catching the Jets this year. Like, that's just not going to happen. The Jets would have to go.
I love when you make proclamations, and nothing tickles my fancy more than when you make proclamations, so that 6 months from now we can throw those proclamations back in your face.
No, but we're 14 games into the season, and the Avalanche are already 14 points behind the Jets. Maybe I shouldn't make that bold proclamation, but the point is that it's going to be hard for the Avalanche to catch the Jets, especially if they keep winning anything close to this winning percentage, right? But I think, it goes back to what Dave was saying before. You like the way how resilient they've been, right? Like they've often given up the first goal or the first couple of goals, and they've been able to come back. And the thing that stands out to me, guys, is the amount of goals that they're scoring. Dave talked about it a couple nights ago against Utah, right? What do we have? 13 goals and 34 points, something like that from the third line. Like, when you're 14 games into the season, if that even, extrapolates a little bit, if you're able to get 30 to 35 goals and 90 to 100 points from your third line, like, you're going to be very happy with that. And so far they've got production from the third line. Now the fourth line, it's a different story. And obviously the last couple of games, your fourth line's going to play a little bit less when the game's closer, right? So we know Morgan Barron, Alex Iafel, Rasmus Kupari, what do they have? 3 combined goals. That's not a lot, but it's not to say that they've been bad. 2 goals on the fourth line, because I think Morgan Barron doesn't have a goal yet, if I'm not mistaken. But the point I'm trying to make,
Iafalo's goal came on the power play as well.
Yeah.
Right. So when you look at really in terms of the 5-on-5, they were winning their minutes, but you want to see them put the puck in the net. You want to see them get a little bit actually more, in terms of goals and assists and the traditional stats. It's good that they're winning their minutes. It's good that they're tilting the ice, but it also has been, I think, lesser over the last number of games, how one-sided their performance has been. It's been back to closer to 50-50. In fact, they were well below 50% of possession last game against Colorado, much like all the Jets were for that matter. But you just still want to see a little bit. You want to see that fourth line recapture what they had for the first couple games this season, I think is what you're saying there.
Right, but the top 9 has picked up the slack, right? The top 9 has been that good. Obviously, the Nemesnikov, Perfetti, Ehlers line, that line, took a few more games to get going than the Scheifele line, but they haven't been as dependent on the fourth line, maybe if you want to put it that way, as they were last year. But I mean, so I think you don't want to diminish this start, guys. And you mentioned, Drew, this is history. Like, they can become the first team to ever win 14 of the first 15 games, which is really incredible. But they have to keep it going. That's what I would say is you've got a tough schedule coming up with the Panthers and the Rangers and the Lightning. I don't think it's in that particular order, but you've got tough games coming up, the back-to-back against Florida. So the schedule is going to get harder starting today. But I think you don't want to take away how impressive they've been, Dave, the 13 of the first 14 games, with maybe the exception of a couple games, because that game against the Avalanche, that's not a game, we said that's not a game you're going to write home about, because that was Hellebuck stealing the game, but that was the first time he's had to do that this year. So that's a good sign.
That is in and of itself is certainly a good sign. You're playing a Dallas Stars team today that is also, a very good hockey team. Sure, the Jets are well ahead of where they are in the standings, but Dallas is 8-4. They have the +10 goal differential. The Stars are a damn good hockey team, and one, by the way, that won 3 out of 4 against the Jets last year when these two teams played division rival game. Dallas and Winnipeg, there's a lot of similarities, I would say, in how they are built. Neither team, from my perspective, has that overwhelming superstar. Neither team has that guy who's, when you rattle off the superstars in the league, when you rattle off the McDavids and the McKinnons and the Crosbys, et cetera, neither team has that guy who jumps to mind immediately. What both teams have is a ton of forward depth. You look at Dallas's forward lineup, very similar to Winnipeg's in that they're built 1 through 12 top, that they have talent sprinkled all throughout their lineup. I would say that, and just like we did last year, Dallas's back end is probably a little stronger than Winnipeg's is, but both young players still sort of trying to find their way in the NHL. And of course the goaltending. Dallas with Jake Ottinger, you're seeing a Jake Ottinger that was similar to what he was last year, or 2 years ago for Dallas. Had a bit of a down year last year, but that Hellebuck and Ottinger are right now the 2 leading potential goaltenders, with all due respect to Jeremy Swayman and Thatcher Demko, who of course is still out of the lineup for Vancouver. These 2 guys are the leading goaltenders for the Team USA in the Four Nations Cup. So these are 2 similar teams, almost mirror images, the Spider-Man meme, heading to do battle against each other. And they also don't like each other, given that they're division rivals, Dave.
Yeah, there's no question. And when Scott O'Neill was asked, by the way, shout out to my nephews who are watching the show, Luxon and Finn. Thanks for watching. Yes. But smash that like button, guys. But just, Drew, the idea of what Scott O'Neill was asked specifically about Dallas. And that's why I liken it to a chess match. They're not going to try and trade chances with you. They're really going to try and capitalize on the mistakes you made. They're a disciplined hockey team, as I think that's kind of what Drew's saying here. And so that to me is why you're going to have to, Spencer, you get a shout out to, even though you're not my family. So there, shout out to Spence. He was saying I'm displaying some nepotism, but regardless, I think that you've got a Dallas team and obviously they're very well coached. We've talked about him, throughout the years about how good he is, right? As he is a coach. So from a Dallas perspective, what you're going to get. And, it was interesting. There was some scuttlebutt yesterday in terms of who would be, starting. I don't know why someone thought that maybe DeSmith would start over Ottinger today. I know that Dallas just played in Chicago. I want to say I think they had a 3-1 lead, 3-1 win, in their last game. So we'll see if it's Ottinger or DeSmith, but I don't know why.
And DeSmith, we should mention, his numbers have been equally as good as Jake Ottinger's, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
So they've got a good 1-2 punch there. But to your point, I mean, this is a very strong team. And, this is, I don't know if you want to call it a statement game or a measuring stick game, whatever it is. The importance of this game, I think, is just a little bit more elevated than it is against the Colorado Avalanche, just because of the way the Stars have played so far. They lost a couple games in Finland, but prior to that, I think they won 3 of 4. So, like we were talking about it right before we went live, right? Like you look at the record, you're like 8-4. That's not bad. That gets you 10 points behind the Jets right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I expect a desperate team, even though they won their last game, Dave. And I think, it's going to be interesting to see if Mason Marchment's going to play. He was out, I believe, last game.
He's a game time decision. So, Mason Marchment is a very effective player and has been for the Dallas Stars since coming over from, where was he? Was he with Florida before?
Florida.
Yeah,
Florida.
That's where he was. He was signed by Dallas as a UFA, if I recall correctly. And he's
correct.
definitely been a very effective player for the Dallas Stars. So him not being in the lineup, and obviously we won't know that till close to game time, would be a loss. He also plays on that second power play unit for the Dallas Stars. So that would be an absence from their top 6. But you look at their lineup. I mean, you look at their forward group, and it is really quite impressive. You got guys like Jason Robertson. You got, and he's certainly as close to a superstar, I think, as you have on the Dallas Stars, coming off, a 40-goal year and things of that nature. He's certainly got the offensive prowess. Matt Duchene has been rejuvenated since he came over after being bought out by the Nashville Predators. He's found a very solid home there in Dallas. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he's leading the team. He's over a point a game. He's having a great start to the year. 15 points in his first 12 games. And then even some of those younger guys like Logan Stankoven, he's at a point per game so far this year, 2 goals, 10 assists. Tons of talent on this Dallas Stars team, but built in a similar way to the Jets, as opposed to the Colorado Avalanche on Thursday night, where they're built with that top line of superstars, whereas Dallas can come at you 1 through 9, line after line after line. So it's a really difficult challenge for the Winnipeg Jets so far this year.
And if you want to go further down that forward group, they've got 2 guys that are first-round picks on the 4th line. Dave knows the name Maverick Bourque. He was one of the top scorers in the AHL last year with the Texas Stars. I think he was around 77 points. And when you're talking about Sam Steele, he had 131 points for the Regina Pats. Remember back in the day when we used to cover the WHL a little bit more, that's a name that WHL observers will know. So you've got first-round picks on your 4th line. And like you said, Drew, that 3rd line could easily be a top line of any other team in the NHL. And that 3rd line is Jamie Benn, Wyatt Johnston, and Logan Stankoven. Like, I'm not joking. Obviously, you've got a veteran with 2 younger players there. But yeah, that's why Dallas has been to the Western Conference Final 2 of the last years, right? Like, that's why a lot of people picked the Stars to win the Stanley Cup this year. Not me. I picked the Carolina Hurricanes just to get that out there again, and they're doing pretty well, so my pick is looking good. I'm joking, obviously, Drew. Don't get too excited.
I didn't say a word.
We're 14 or 15 games into the season. By the way, shout out to Jack Roslovic, a.k.a. Mr. Cy Young. 9 goals and 1 assist in 12 games.
Who always said that he was a good player.
Well, I don't think anybody expected Jack Roslovic to put up that kind of goals or that amount of goals early on in the year for the Carolina Hurricanes. But
I will say it's very odd in the sense that he's a facilitator. He's a pass first guy. He's not really a big goal scorer, but I mean, look, you find it just goes to show you though that guys can find a spot, and if they can get comfortable, look at what they can do. And 9 goals for Jack Roslovic is not too shabby.
Well, that's to me what stands out, Dave, about that system is that like Jackson Blake, we talk about him a lot, played for University of North Dakota. I believe he was the captain, maybe even a Hobie Baker finalist, but he's the son of ex-NHLer Jason Blake. He's got 4 or 5 goals for the Hurricanes, right?
Yeah.
So it's like certain teams, I would throw the Boston Bruins in there. I would throw the Jets in there. To be honest with you, it's if you have a certain system and you're a skilled player and you're put with the right players, you're going to succeed, right? So it's like you see teams like Carolina, more players do that with Carolina, right? That's also how well coached they are in addition to the system they employ, right? But yes, there's no doubt it's going to be a big test against the Dallas Stars. Afternoon game, obviously. And is it not retro night, Dave, tonight?
It's 90s. Yeah, it's 90s.
Sorry,
game.
90s day, I should say. So
Yeah.
there's going to be a lot of the Jets 1.0 jerseys in the crowd.
And the first 5,000 fans through the gates today, or the doors today, get a retro 90s hat of some teal variety, which, a snapback 90s style hat.
Teal's a great color. Winnipeg Sea Bears colors.
I will say that it was 80s night in Niagara yesterday. I won't go too much into the prospect stuff, but Kevin goal and assist. And I got to give a shout out to the play-by-play voice in Niagara because he said, "Don't you forget about as he scored the goal." So nice little shout out to the 1985 song in Niagara yesterday.
There you go. Dallas Stars, strength for them on the special teams, not the power play, is the penalty kill. So you're going to see strength versus strength. Of course, the Jets, we all know, have the top power play in the NHL. Dallas's penalty kill coming in at just under 87%, fourth in the NHL.
That's good.
So, this is a really intriguing matchup this afternoon. Beyond the fact that it's, game number 15 in an 82 game slog, and the Jets are going for history, is that you have these two division rivals. The Jets perfect so far against the Central Division. They beat the Wild, they beat Utah, they beat St. Louis, they beat Chicago, they beat Colorado. They haven't played Nashville yet. They're looking to make it 6 out of 6 against the Dallas Stars this afternoon. This is, a lot of the schedule's been soft for the Jets so far. This isn't a soft game by any stretch of the imagination. These are two teams where it's really strength against strength when you talk about the depth up front with the forward group. When you talk about the Jets power play versus the Dallas Stars special teams, Dallas isn't scoring a lot. They're scoring, I think, about 18th or so in the league in terms of goals for per game played, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 16th, pardon me. But you look at the goals against per game played for the Dallas Stars. Guess what? They're third behind the Winnipeg Jets, who, of course, are atop the league. So you have the Jets offense versus the Dallas defense. You got the Jets power play against the Dallas penalty kill. There's a lot to be intrigued about when it comes to this afternoon's contest between the Jets and the Stars, beyond the historic potential that could be made in this afternoon's game.
One of the things I want to ask Mike Heika about, we're going to have Kevin Sawyer on coming up in about 5 minutes or 7 minutes, but then we've got Mike Heika, who works for the Dallas Stars. He's their senior staff writer. One of the things I want to ask him about is Jamie Benn. I don't know if you guys saw this. He went a perfect 16 for 16 in the faceoff circle against the Chicago Blackhawks. Like, he's one of only, I don't know, half a dozen guys or 10 guys that have ever done that. You remember, though, Jamie Benn is a natural left winger. So it's an interesting transition to go for. He's played, quite a bit of center, but he's a natural left winger. So I want to ask Mike Heika about that, but that's something interesting.
Veteran guile on display there is what that is. That's just a veteran player going up against, not to take anything away from Jamie Benn, but that's a veteran player going up against a younger Blackhawks team, and
but Drew, 16.
No, I'm saying it's incredible. It's incredible.
Ridiculous.
I'm saying it's absolutely incredible. That's
not like he won like 3 or 4 faceoffs. Right. He won 16.
I'm not downplaying it.
100%.
Yeah, I'm not downplaying it. It's a very impressive. It's impressive, but it goes to show you just how this, winning faceoffs really does come with experience, and it does come with
what you're saying is Connor Bedard was probably on the receiving end of some of those losses.
He was probably schooled by a veteran player as to how you win faceoffs. And that's why you see so many younger players, younger centermen, trying to learn from veteran guys about how to take a faceoff draw and how to be successful in the dot when it comes to things of that nature, because it does come with, you talk about the 10,000 hours, Malcolm Gladwell. That's one of the things that comes with 10,000 hours of experience, is learning how to win faceoffs at the NHL level. And that's Jamie Benn just demonstrating that veteran presence and that veteran know-how in that kind of game, going 16 for 16, which absolutely, by the way, I'm not downplaying it.
No, I know you're not.
Incredibly impressive to be able to get away with that and succeed at that level.
Right. And that to me is kind of, one of the strengths, not one of the strengths, probably the main strength of the Dallas Stars is, they're strong in every area, and they've got a mixture of veterans and young players. And that's what's allowed them. Like, everyone knows about Logan Stankoven and Wyatt Johnston, but Maverick Bourque is another guy who's now in the system. He's playing on the fourth line. We talked about it. He was over a point per game player in the AHL, right? So they're deep. The Stars are deep. The Jets are deep, but the Stars might be just as deep, if not deeper, than the Jets.
Well, somebody who's deep in their knowledge and their know-how about the NHL and the Winnipeg Jets is Kevin Sawyer, Jets on TSN analyst. He's here early, so let's bring him into the show early. Kevin Sawyer making his debut on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Kevin, first and foremost, how did we rope you into this? You've managed to avoid us for all these years. We thought that was the strong move on your parts. We must have caught you at a vulnerable moment.
Just when I thought everybody forgot I was in town, I got the call. Hey, it's my privilege. I'm glad to hear from you guys. Thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure, Kevin. Thanks for joining us this morning to talk about the Jets, and the Dallas Stars later this afternoon. You and Dan Robertson will have the call, 2 o'clock puck drop. I started by asking Dave and Ezzy, on the show, potential for history to be made today with the Jets winning, 14 of their first 15 if they come out on the victorious end. The first NHL team to start a year with that kind of success rate. Does that resonate in the dressing room? Like in your time when you were in the league, when you were with teams and they were on the verge of maybe making some a historic accomplishment or really something along those lines, are the players aware of that? And is that sort of resonating and maybe in the back of their mind starting to today's game?
100%. It's funny because it's such a positive. And you want to wrangle the momentum, of course, right? Because this is something special. I mean, obviously, it hasn't been done very often. But it gets to a point where you almost want to push it away, where you use it as momentum, but you don't want to use it as false momentum and have it as a distraction as well. But hey, when you look at yourself and you look at a winning team is a team that looks at process versus result. And right now, the Jets are getting unbelievable results, and I'll say that with this in mind, that there's some games where maybe they're lucky to get out of it. Maybe that last one was one of them where, arguably they were not the better team in the third period. So have they won some games maybe they didn't deserve to win? Yeah, that's what good teams do. But man, this is a special thing, and it's about the process. And to me, that's where I look, and the details within. They haven't played perfect hockey for 14 games, but they've played clearly to their systems. And this doesn't just start this year. This is something that's been in the making now for going back to the beginning of 2022.
Kevin, just to go back to the Jets Avalanche game, like obviously we want to look forward to the Jets Stars game, but you mentioned everyone could see watching that game that in the second and third periods, Colorado was all over the Jets. Like how hard is that to change the tide of momentum there? Because obviously the Jets had a lot of success against the Avalanche in the regular season last year, but the playoffs was a completely different story after game one. Like what can you do when McKinnon and Makar and Rantanen and all these really talented fast players are coming at you in waves? Like it's almost like the Jets were being beaten by doing the same thing that they like to do against other teams. Like from your vantage point, like what could they have done maybe a little bit differently to kind of slow the Avalanche down? I mean, it's easy for me to say, like when you're talking about some of the best players in the league, but how do you kind of calm it down and get the momentum going back in your favor?
Good question. Yeah, you know what? When you're the best team or one of the best teams in the league, you're going to get a ton of attention, of course, pre-scouting, and you're going to look at what other teams may have done or what they're doing to get some success against you. And for me, there's a common thread here where the Jets smother you, and when they lose the puck in the offensive zone, they reload, they get above you quick, they slow things right down in the neutral zone, and they do not give free entries to teams very easily. So that frustrates teams. And over time, like we always talk about being patient, I think it's a tough quality for teams, and not very many teams are patient. So they start to force plays, they start to try to seam you, they start to try to make extra plays because they think that's what it takes to beat a team that's as defensive and as strong as the Jets are defensively. But the truth is it's the opposite of that. And I think that's what we saw in the second half of the game with the Avs is it was simple. Shoot the puck to the net, and then rather than try to carry it there or pass it there, shoot it there and then make sure you just cause chaos by going to the net. It's nothing earth-shattering, but to me, that's what the Jets are really good at doing. And when you do that, you see the chaos that it caused in front of Connor Hellebuyck. It's the same as what the Jets do. Shoot the puck early, whether it's 5-on-5 or a power play. That collapses the other team to their net, and now that opens up some high ice, and now that starts to get the team to chase. That's what causes teams to separate, and then the seams start to happen. So it's a tough thing. It's a good question because that third period against the Avalanche is more of what you're going to see in the second half of the season because it's simple playoff style of hockey. And that's what the Jets have to look forward to, is getting more of the same from other teams. Everybody talked about last game being kind of like the redemption game and the measuring stick. Not a chance for me. Colorado wasn't healthy. They're not playing their best hockey. They're not getting good goaltending. This game today with Dallas is going to be the measuring stick. At game number 15, you got the third best defensive team in the league right now with Dallas. You talked about the depth they have. They have the goaltending. Their penalty kill is strong. This today is going to, for me, this is a measuring stick game.
Kevin, it's one of the biggest benefits we're seeing from this Jets start. It gave Coach Scott Arniel the opportunity to kind of run with some things as opposed to having to make quick changes. You know, he liked Gabe Velarde, Kyle Connor, Mark Scheifele. Their 5-on-5 play wasn't great to start the season, but he wanted to have that opportunity to stick with them. Rasmus Kupari, there was a question. He obviously scores in the first game, but he had faith in him throughout the course of training camp. And now because they're winning, he has this latitude to say, okay, I'm going to run with these guys and really see what I've got in each one of these lines.
Yeah, you know what? That's another thing too. I said this has been in the making now for, back to 2022. Scott Arniel was the mastermind behind a lot of the systems that you're seeing still today. When Rick Bowness was the head coach, most of the systems were constructed, and they were collaborations. But Scott Arniel is the guy that has kind of put these systems into place. So he's taking that into his first year as the head coach. But also, there's so much more to that, where a really good coach, a good leader, always makes people feel important and make sure that they have a purpose. You can just say that you're important, but the only really way you feel important is if you have a role. And so it's clear to me going into this year, Brendan Dillon is gone. They've lost some guys off the back end. And so they're saying, okay, Logan Stanley, you're going to be given a role, and you're going to be given some leash to fill that role. Let's find out. And the same is true with Rasmus Kupari in that fourth line. Yeah, they're not scoring, but man, they spend all their time in the offensive zone. They're clearly committing to a plan, and it doesn't happen in a week or a month. They want to give these guys a chance to grow into a role. That, to me, is how you develop. And it's no different with the top line or even the second line with Nemescott, Perfetti, and Ehlers. They didn't start off very well. I'm asking myself, how is that trio going to get to the net? How are they going to score goals with very little size? They've been given some time. They've been patient with them, and now you're starting to see some results. So there's buy-in here, and you get that because your head coach shows that he believes in you, and that he sticks with that through a course of time. It's not over yet, and tough times are ahead. Trust me on that. This isn't sustainable. We all know that, but we all wish it was. But
hold on, Kevin, you're saying the Jets can't go 81-1?
Hey, you heard it here first.
Kevin Negative Nelly Sawyer is our guest here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. It's presented by Play Now. Kevin, of course, is the Jets on TSN analyst, the Jets and the Stars later on this afternoon. Kevin, you mentioned Logan Stanley. You mentioned he's been given this leash, obviously 10 games now after missing the first 4 due to injury. And I want to go back to Thursday's broadcast where you talked about Stanley and you sort of talked about the need for him to play with a more physical edge, that we don't often see from his game. For a guy as big as he is, he's much more about angles and body position than he is ferocity. And you said you sort of think that he needs to get out of his comfort zone a little bit. I'm paraphrasing you here as opposed to directly quoting you, of course. How difficult is that for a player at this stage of his career, not a young player in the league anymore? How difficult would it be for a Logan Stanley to sort of develop that edge to his game that so far hasn't been there in his time with the Winnipeg Jets?
Fair question, and it's really difficult. I can tell you, and I'm certainly not comparing myself to Logan Stanley or anybody in the NHL in today's game, but it was quick for me leaving kind of junior hockey to realize, okay, I got to figure out a way to separate myself from everybody else if I want a chance to play in this league. And I'm not by nature an aggressive person, but I learned how to be that way on the ice. It can be taught, it can be learned, and it's just a matter of how desperate you are to carve out a niche. So you take that mentality to Logan Stanley. I stand by those words where you're right. 6'7" can't be taught range and making sure that he can shut plays down and use that size to his advantage to benefit the Jets. Yes, that's a need, and for him to make smart plays and to be trusted on the ice. But my point is he good enough to be better than the next guy? at that if he doesn't bring that nastiness to his game? My answer to that is so far no. The answer is no, he's not. And that's not to be any disrespectful to Logan Stanley at all. I'm saying he's holding a golden ticket because he's 6'7", and the league just doesn't have those types of guys very often. So it's not about fighting, but we saw it the other day where he stepped up on a player against Tampa Bay. You guys might remember who he hit. It evades me right now, but you make a play, you put the other team on notice, and you give them an opportunity to do two things. You got to stand up and answer, or you guys just go away. Both aren't easy. They don't want to do either. And that's how you play the role. That's how you say to your team, you cannot pull me out of the lineup because I'm way too valuable to you, to us, and I'm going to affect the game in a way that nobody else can, because nobody else is 6'7", 230 pounds. It can be learned. It's not easy. And all the while, you still have to develop all the other areas of your game to make sure that you can earn trust. I think that's a must. And I say a golden ticket, I mean that. I think he's holding a golden ticket, not only to be a regular in the NHL or with the Winnipeg Jets, but he can be a guy that can put the league on notice if he can find a way to embrace that mentality, in my opinion.
Well, everyone sort of makes the comparison between him and Zdeno Chara because they're both tall. I mean, but he's far more Tyler Myers-esque in how he approaches the game. Not so much offensively. Tyler Myers, of course, had an offensive upside that Logan Stanley doesn't. But I just find it sort of fascinating that two guys that are both, of that height, and that he's more of the Tyler Myers-esque than he would be of the Zdeno Chara-esque. But you see it in those glimpses. That hit in the Tampa Bay game really sort of not changed the tide of the game, because that was a back and forth, wild and woolly contest. But it was something that a week from that, you notice and you remember, and Jets fans who watch that game probably notice and remember.
And every player around the league, you do that a couple times, and every player, trust me, they're going to be looking at the Winnipeg Jets and going, oh God, we're going to play the best team defensively. We're going to play the best goaltender. Oh yeah, right. We got to play that Logan Stanley guy. I look at a guy more like Chris Pronger, who I played with for just a little bit. And I'm not saying he's going to be a Chris Pronger, but I think there's a ton of Chris Pronger's game that Logan Stanley can play, because Chris Pronger was feared and he would punish you. And yeah, he would take penalties, but there's an art to taking penalties at the right time as well. Sometimes you just have to take penalties to make sure that you're riding that edge and you're making other teams pay. It's an art. It's not an easy thing to do. I'm a big Logan Stanley fan. I think that he's a good player. I think he can be a great player with his own identity if he continues to kind of develop.
And obviously nobody's happy that Ville Heinola is injured, but it's nice that Logan Stanley has been given that opportunity and he's run with it, right? Because most people had him as the number 7, number 8 defenseman. So I absolutely agree with you. It's great to see Stanley with a regular spot in the lineup. And Kevin, you mentioned some of your former teammates, and I wanted to play the comparison game a little bit here, because obviously you were a great player, but you played with some really, really future Hall of Famers when you're talking about Brett Hull and Paul Kariya. And I think you know where I'm going with this. Kyle Connor, I always chuckle a little bit when you say on the broadcast that you're running out of superlatives for Connor, because I think we all feel the same way, when we're doing the Saturday show or the post-game shows, because, it's just like what he's doing, 19 points in 14 games. It's like he's elevated his game to another level. Sorry to use a cliche, but how does he compare to Brett Hull and Paul Kariya? Because those were both elite goal scorers. And I just wanted nobody better to ask than you, who was on the ice with those guys. Like, do you see comparisons between those three guys?
No, but that's the thing that makes it so good. And I love that you asked me that, because, and you throw great around pretty loosely, by the way. I was just happy to be around watching these guys, and just, hey, I carved out my 4 minutes a night and had the best seat in the house. But listen, so Brett Hull, as you guys all know, one of the best goal scorers in the history of the game. And just the way that he can release the puck, and from anywhere, from any angle, it can be in his feet, and then it can be in the top corner. And Paul Kariya, I'll tell you, I played with Paul for a long time, and Paul was a guy that was so creative, and a guy that would be willing to try things that would push himself out of his comfort zone. I'll tell you a quick story. It would be after practice, and one of the drills that he would do regularly is he'd have the coach throw a pass to him in his feet. So he's a left-handed shot, and he would stand facing the coach, and then it would be in his feet. He'd flip his stick and one time the thing on his backhand. And I'm not kidding you. It was harder than my strong hand for it one time. And like He would nail it off the boards every time. It was remarkable. Here's the thing with Kyle, and I've talked to Hellebuck, I've talked to Comrie about this, and different goalies around the league. What makes him such a different player? Why is he so good at scoring? And it's because he's unique in the sense that the puck comes off his stick in a way unlike anybody else. And we talk about it, I think a lot of you guys see it too, where his release, a lot of guys sweep the puck and release it, and that gives a goaltender a tell as far as, okay, where's the puck going and when's it going to arrive? Well, Kyle's release is like a 12-inch release. I always say like a firing pin release because it's like a sneeze. It's just here and then it's gone. And if you notice too, when he releases the puck, his stick almost scoops upwards, where most sticks follow through towards their target and roll over. Well, Kyle's scoops up, and a lot of goalies will tell you the puck's on me before I even realize it, and I can't tell where it's going off of his stick. So all the skills that he has and the IQ to put himself in the soft ice, it's the release for me that makes him different than Brett Hull, makes him different than Paul Kariya, it makes him different than Alex Ovechkin, and all these other players. I've never seen a player that shoots the puck like Kyle Connor. The Winnipeg Jets are, well, you don't need me to tell you how lucky they are to have him. I mean, pure sniper.
Kevin, we talked yesterday with Scott Arniel about the Four Nations tournament that's upcoming, and I'm curious from your perspective, how much of a role does that play? Scott mentioned obviously Mark Scheifele and Adam Lowry and Josh Morrissey for Canada, and you've got Hellebuck and Connor for the Americans. But from your perspective, how much of a role does that play in a player? Like Mark Scheifele was asked about it. He said, "My focus is on the Winnipeg Jets," which is what you'd expect him to say.
Yep.
And then he also added that he wished Hellebuck and Kyle Connor had different passports. But ultimately, from that perspective, how much of that can benefit the team that these guys are on the radar and that maybe they're thinking about trying to play for their country later on in the season?
Benefits every team in the NHL. And you're right. The right answer is my focus is today with my team. But the truth is we all know this. When you have something that you want and somebody else threatens to take it from you and you're being evaluated, you're naturally going to bring out the best in you. That's a healthy pressure. And there's no player in this league that wouldn't be honored and wouldn't want in a bad, burning way to represent their country. I mean, the Olympics coming up, of course, the Four Nations. So it's a want. It's something that is rare. And that brings out the best in everybody. I think it brings out the best in coaches. I think it brings out the best in referees, and most certainly players. So yes, it's on Mark Scheifele's mind. It's on everybody's mind. There's players that are on the bubble, and I think Mark Scheifele is one of those guys. I mean, hey, if he has a run here and he continues, in my opinion, to play the game the way that we've seen him play it in the last couple of years, away from the puck, and continues to produce offense the way he has, he's got to be considered. I would say 2 years ago, I wouldn't think he'd be considered. And that's a compliment to Mark because of how much he's developed, how much he's embraced the Rick Bowness, Scott Arniel kind of mentality about how you really win hockey games. And so it brings out the best. I think we're seeing that. And we're right now seeing the best hockey that Mark Scheifele has ever played in his career because of the with and without the puck decisions he makes.
Kevin Sawyer is our guest on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Show is presented, of course, by our friends at Play. Now, Kevin and Dan Robertson will have the call of the Jets and the Stars this afternoon, 2 o'clock puck drop, and then the Illegal Curve postgame show right around 4:45 p.m. this afternoon as well, talking about everything that's going to happen in this afternoon's contest. Kevin, when you think of the Jets forwards, the ones that first come to mind, or at least, at the forefront, Connor, Scheifele, Ehlers, even Perfetti, I always find that Gabe Vilardi isn't necessarily one of the first 2 or 3 names rattled off when you think of the Jets forwards. Do you think he's just sort of quietly goes about his business and isn't necessarily the flashiest, and that's why he's not talked about, at the forefront of the Jets forwards? Or do you think he's maybe even a little underappreciated for what he brings to the table night in and night out?
I think more time has to pass here in his time in Winnipeg before we can really say that he's underappreciated. He's had a lot of injuries in his career. Mm-hmm. He comes here as a third liner with the LA Kings, and this was a projection trade in my mind as to what Gabe Vilardi can be versus what he has been. And before our very eyes, we're seeing him, write that story. And so it makes a ton of sense to me why he would be put on that first line. It's like a puzzle, right? Where you've got the playmaking ability with Scheif, and then the speed and the shot with Kyle. Someone's got to get them that puck off the wall, and someone's got to get to the net as well, pull D away from those guys with the puck. And Vilardi is so good at that. And he's not a strong skater, but he's a good enough skater to be able to get there. But he is elite when it comes to playing with the puck under pressure, making plays in small space. And so if he can stay healthy, and I think as his confidence grows, I think that he'd be one of the first to admit that he's a guy that really works and continues to work on his own internal belief and his own confidence in himself. And I think that's what separates good players from great players. I think we're seeing more and more confidence from Gabriel Vilardi. So underappreciated. I don't think he's underappreciated, to be fair, at this point. But I think that this guy can be a staple in the Winnipeg Jets organization for a long time, because he serves a purpose that, Nino Niederreiter would be the only other guy in my mind in that top 9 that could play that role. And if you were to put Nino Niederreiter on that top line, he would have a reflection of maybe the same type of numbers, but you can't take him off that third line because Nino's just too valuable there, that identity line. So Gabriel Vilardi is, to me, I'm excited about him because he's a really good person. He loves the team. He's a great teammate, and the skills I just talked about. I think one day soon that we might be talking about him being underappreciated. He's working towards that kind of stability and consistency in his game.
Kevin, I wanted to ask you about vibes. I'm a big vibes guy. Ask Drew and Dave. And obviously, with the Jets 13-1 right now, not only are they playing with a confidence, I think you'd agree, a confidence that even though we might have seen it at times last year, especially when the team was, in first in the Central, first in the West, or that long winning streak at the end of the season. But it seems like not only are they playing with a confidence and a swagger, but they're having fun doing it. We've been covering this team since they came back. Obviously, we're not, as close to the team as you are. And that's why I wanted to ask you about it. But it seems like, this group, there's something, and it's easy to say that when the team is 13-1, but this is just my own, as the Jets outsider, as I always call myself, even though we cover the team, what is it that you're seeing about this year's team? Because it seems like these guys they know they can win every game, and they're having fun doing it.
You know what? I want to talk about this topic maybe more than any other topic. I just can't on the air because there's just not enough time. Sure. But
we have unlimited time here.
Yeah, so Kevin, we can give you extra time. If you want an hour, we'll give you an hour.
I'm gonna put my feet up here. We're gonna dig into this. You go back to, let's just go back 4 years, and you look at the team. I don't believe the team is as talented today as it was 4 years ago, 5 years ago. But talent doesn't win you championships. You need talent. We've got a ton of it. But you go back and in the culture and in the vibe in the room and the way that the team presented themselves day to day. And I'm going to say this first. I'm not bleeding. I'm not sweating. I'm not in that room. I'm not a part of that team, but I'm around it a lot. And so this is a peripheral view of my opinion. It wasn't strong, and something needed to change. There's no doubt about that, because you can be the most talented team in the world, but if you aren't brothers and you don't have one mind believing in one thing, something that's bigger than yourself, you're never going to win. And so I think that there was some of that going on. Rick Bowness comes in, Kevin Cheveldayoff, you all know the culture change. And that is why this team does have a chance to prove people wrong and to go deep into the playoffs. I go into that room now versus 4 years ago, and it's like a beer league locker room. Guys are in their stalls. They're not quiet, separated, rushing out of the room. They want to be around each other. They're laughing with each other. They're more open to media. They're less guarded. And for me, it's leadership, a core shift. Adam Lowry being the captain, and Rick Bowness came in and said, hey, you're not doing this your way. You're important. You're not as important as me. And none of us are more important than us. And that is what is happening. And that's the vibe that I feel. 13-1, yeah. Everybody in that room knows, hey, this is great. Trust me, we want to put ourselves in the best position for playoff spot, home ice advantage. But they all understand now, hey, what we really need to do is win the playoffs. So this is part of the process. And that is the thing that people around Winnipeg need to know and should be more excited about than anything is these guys are brothers. They love each other. They like each other. And they even disagree with each other in a healthy way where I hear on the bench at ice level guys, I can hear them in the third period the other day against the Avs. They were not happy with each other, calling each other out in a healthy way. And that's a good thing. So the vibe is great. Yes, because they have 13 wins, but more because these guys are learning to be brothers. They're learning to be a family. And that it has not always been like that. It is now.
Well, Kevin, I'm going to stick with the brothers and the vibe theme because I'm curious about your relationship with Dan Robertson. We had Dan on last week. Dan's a great guy. But just in terms of, you had to transition from Dennis to Dan. And how has your relationship with him changed over the years and working, whether you're beside each other in the press box or if you're down at ice level?
Yeah, thanks for asking that too. Dan is, you know what? He lives upstairs. We live in the same building and we have our fobs open up our own floors to each other. So he'll just come down, knock on the door, come in, grab my guitar, start strumming while I'm cooking, or we'll have a beer and talk. We're buddies. And I was buddies with Dennis, although the age gap with Dennis, I always said to Dennis, I hope when I'm in my 70s, I'm like a buddy with a guy in his 40s, because it always felt like Dennis and I were buddies and we spent a ton of time together on the road and laughed, because Dennis's sense of humor was and is amazing. Same Dan. And I think that's a huge part of having a good relationship with a broadcast partner is you should be able to, of course, communicate with each other, but you should want to spend time together and laugh. And Dan, I'll tell you, is hilarious. This guy has got a sense of humor like none other. So we laugh together a ton. We talk hockey together a lot. And we like spending time together. So just yesterday he called me. He goes, I'm at the grocery store. He says, bring me some cream for coffee. So he'll probably show up for coffee soon.
I love that. Last question for you, Kevin. This afternoon, the Dallas Stars, I can't help but look at the similarities to how these two teams are built, and that they're built in a similar manner. Maybe they don't have that, top of the mind superstar that, the Crosbys, the McDavids, the Dreisaitl's, the McKinnons, but they have a ton of forward depth. They have great goaltending. They have solid defense. To me, they're just almost mirror images of each other. From the Jets' perspective, you're trying to flush the bad game, good result from Thursday night. How do you think the Jets have to sort of approach today's game against the Dallas Stars?
Yeah, maybe the best thing that could have happened was the Jets won that game 1-0, knowing that they played poorly in the second half. So that's going to get their attention. And I happen to know that the meeting after the game, what's today, Saturday, on Thursday, was not a kind one. I know that again, Scott Arniel is looking at the process, not the result. And so a good thing that they won the game knowing that they weren't at their best, because they are going to need to be at their best here. I'm assuming that Dallas is going to come in as a highly motivated group, knowing that, okay, they think they're the best team in the league. No. We're the best team in the league. And this is going to be a grudge match here. And I think the biggest challenge posed here for the Jets is the fact that the Jets, we talk about it all the time with that patient game where they don't force plays they used to, and they lose a game in a shift or two, where now they're just not willing to do that. If the play isn't there, chip it, win it, cycle it, get above them, and just grind and force the other team to make mistakes. Dallas might be the best team in the league at that, or at least top 3 with Winnipeg. So that's, to me, why this is a measuring stick game, because you got the ability to score goals. Both teams do. More importantly, both teams are among the best at suppressing shots and not giving up freebies. So you got to be patient and you have to earn it. And I think I'm excited for this game more than any other game through 15 to this point.
Kevin, you made a very significant mistake this morning. You were so good on the show. We're going to have you back. So you expect to be annoyed by us moving forward. Kevin Sawyer, Jets on
Kevin, I was going to see if maybe you could play a couple of guitar riffs for us. I didn't realize you were such a guitar player.
In the future, hey, maybe we'll have a guitar segment. Now you're stuck with me.
It's good. We'll be stuck with each other. Jets on TSN analyst Kevin Sawyer, the Jets and the Stars, 2:00 this afternoon. Thank you, Kevin. Have a great rest of the Saturday. We'll see you on the broadcast later on today.
Thanks for having me, man. That's fun. Right on.
Take care.
Okay.
There he goes. Kevin Sawyer joining us this morning on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Mike Heika covers the Dallas Stars, been a longtime reporter for the Dallas Stars, is set to join us coming up in about 5 minutes' time. Before we go to break, though, we want to share with you this exciting information. The Illegal Curve merchandise store is now open. It's only
Ooh.
open for the next week or so. So if you've been clamoring to get some of that great Illegal Curve merchandise, you can now go ahead and do so. Illegal Curve t-shirts, hoodies, zip-ups, long sleeves, something for the kids as well, and something for to keep your head warm as well. We have it all on the Illegal Curve merchandise store. It's only open until November 17th so that you can get your orders in and get your gear delivered before the Christmas rush. So for the Illegal Curve fan in your life, or maybe yourself, get your latest Illegal Curve merchandise. It's available now in the Illegal Curve merchandise store. The ticker is showing you at the bottom. It's also available through our website, illegalcurve.com. So get your hands on some brand new Illegal Curve merchandise. You will look like the coolest kid in school or on the playground or in the workspace or at the bar, wherever you may be. Oh, looked like my mom is texting me. She says she wants some new gear as well. So get your Illegal Curve merchandise immediately. Follow the link at the bottom. Follow the link on the website, and you can get yourself some IC gear.
Hanukkah and Christmas has come early, boys.
Yes, and Hanukkah and Christmas actually coincide this year. The first day of Hanukkah is Christmas.
Yep.
So you have no excuse for not getting your Illegal Curve merchandise. Get it now through the link at the screen or through our website, illegalcurve.com.
Looks like I'll be having Chinese food on Christmas, boys.
There you go. When we come back, that has nothing to do with merchandise, but a random saying nonetheless.
No, because
I know, I understand. I get it. It's okay.
go to
You don't need
breakthrough.
to respond. And when we come back, Mike Heika is going to join us for more about the Dallas Stars. Don't go anywhere. Drew Mindell, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg. It's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show live on a Saturday morning, presented by Play Now.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
Do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in two unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumor's incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal, starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
Hour number 2 of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show starts now. Drew Mindell, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg with you. The show presented by our friends at Play Now. Of course, learn to bet with Play Now and receive the official betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets. Sign up and get up to $250 in bonus bets. Conditions apply. 18 plus. Enjoy responsibly. The Dallas Stars in town to face the Jets this afternoon. We're pleased to welcome to the program from DallasStars.com, longtime reporter for the Dallas Stars, longtime friend of our show, Mike Heika, joins us this morning. Mike, good morning. You look great. Don't worry about it. Thanks so much for joining us.
Never look better.
Never. Oh my gosh. Hey lads, how are you? Very excited for this game.
Exactly. It is an exciting game, isn't it? We just had Kevin Sawyer on. Kevin, of course, is going to be on the broadcast, the Jets on TSN broadcast. And he was saying, of the first 15 games, this is the game where it's the most sort of significant measuring stick from the Winnipeg Jets perspective. I'd imagine it's very similar for the Dallas Stars. The Stars are off to a very respectable start this year, 8-4. It happens to put them 10 points behind the Winnipeg Jets. But both of these teams, division rivals, they don't like each other. They expect to be jostling for, the top 3 in the division. I think that this is a sort of a significant early season game for both teams.
Yeah, definitely. And I think basically they're each trying to establish who they are, what they are. I think Winnipeg's done a better job of that, but they also there's still only 14 games in. They want to continue on this path. And the Stars, they've been kind of weaving all over the road. The Finland thing didn't end up good with the 2 losses to Florida. And they definitely want to show they're that team from last year, the team that had the best record in the Western Conference, a team that got to the Western Conference final. So that they've got a lot on the line in this one.
Mike, I just wanted to talk again briefly for those who don't know. The Stars and the Panthers just faced each other in Finland. I'll be honest, that completely surprised me and came out of nowhere. Obviously, not the same for you, but we're hyper focused on the Jets, so I completely forgot that was going on. I obviously knew that the Devils Sabres opening season series was happening in Prague, but that kind of caught me by surprise there. But how did the experience go for the team? Obviously, they didn't get the wins, like you mentioned. They rebounded with a big win against Chicago, but how did that experience go for them? Because obviously Dallas has played overseas before.
They actually haven't. That was their first time.
Oh, it was? Okay.
Yeah, that's why I think it was so interesting. So the team president, Brad Alberts, is a really smart guy. And he's the guy who got them the Winter Classic, which ended up being pretty successul. And then he got them this trip to Finland and against Florida, because Florida has 4 Finns. The Stars have 3 Finns. So there was a lot of, just out and about with everybody. I mean, a lot of media, Finnish media, and just, glad handing with a lot of important people. So all of that was very good for the organization. But and in an actual season, they kept saying, "Oh, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. We've handled stuff like this before." But Florida just killed them in game 1. And then they came back and fought really hard in game 2, but Florida made the big plays. And I think it was a 3-2 game in the third period, and Florida had an empty netter. And, that it is what it is. On one side, the 3 Finns, it was amazing for them. I mean, they got to play in front of their grandparents. They got to, Esa Lindell is a part owner of Jokerit. And so we went to a Jokerit game, and he was very emotional because that's the team he grew up with. They're trying to bring it back, from the KHL. There was a lot going on there, and it was very good to see him be a part of that during the regular season. And then Heiskanen and Hintz also, for all those 3, it was amazing. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity. For the rest of the team, they were very happy, I think, for their teammates. But it was a struggle.
So they went over there on Sunday and stayed and did a bunch of things. They stayed in Helsinki to start, did a bunch of things, then went up to Tampere and then practiced there Thursday, played Friday, played Saturday, then got on a plane, 11-hour plane ride back to Dallas. So it was hectic. It was good in a lot of ways, but it was also really challenging.
Well, Mike, one player we have to talk about, and Moose fans saw him a lot play against them when the Stars and the Moose did battle, and the Moose and the Stars are doing battle in Cedar Park this evening. So we got a double feature today, but is Logan Stankoven. He was so good last year in the AHL, obviously made his NHL debut and played for the Stars as well, the parent club. But what are you seeing from this young man who just looked so good, so poised last year, and it looks like he's continuing that this year?
He's a funny guy. When you talk to him, he's very calm. You know, he plays, his engine's just running constantly. So you think he's just going to be this guy's going to talk, and he doesn't. And I think that helps him deal with all of these challenges that he's going through right now. I mean, what he had to do last year, getting called up, playing in the playoffs, he's just handled it no big deal. And then this year, he came out in camp and said, yeah, I want to win the Calder. And he played 24 games last year, so he's 1 game short. I think they're 2 games short of being, ineligible, but he's eligible, and he's just shot out of the gate. He's leading the rookies in scoring right now. It's an interesting element because since they lost Pavelski, they're really trying to make that top line what it was. And so now they thought, okay, well, maybe it'll be Wyatt Johnston. Well, they like Wyatt Johnston at center. Maybe it'll Stankoven. Well, he was good, but then that line was okay. And so now they moved Stankoven back to Jamie Benn and Wyatt Johnston, and they moved Dadonov up to that top line. So it's ironic is that Logan Stankoven is actually kind of a fixer. Like, that as young as he is, Pete DeBoer uses him when he wants a line to get going. And so this has been really interesting. He's a fantastic player. And 2, he's a really good guy. He gets it. It's interesting. So he's from Kamloops. So he lived with his parents his whole junior career. So last year should have been kind of a big transition to, 1, move out of his house, live on an apartment on his own, and then live in Texas of all places. But he just ate it up, and he's doing it again this year. Nothing seems to bother him. And then obviously, I mean, if you're a fan of small players,
yeah, he
is so fun to watch because it never stops moving. He's always thinking, he's always darting in and out of places. He's always doing things that, quote unquote, the normal hockey player is not going to try. He tries it because he has to.
Mike, I'm struck, and I continue to be struck by how similar these two teams, the Jets and the Stars, are in terms of how they're built. They don't maybe necessarily have that top line super duper star, but they have a ton of forward depth. They have good defense, and they have the goaltending. I want to start with the goaltending for Dallas. Jake Ottinger last year, wasn't his best year, but he seems like he sort of recaptured his form. 6-2 so far this year, the .922 save percentage, the 2.26 goals against average. Both the Jets and the Stars, they don't give up a lot of goals traditionally. The Jets top of the league, Dallas third in the league. Just how important is it for the Stars that Ottinger sort of has recaptured what he had a couple years ago, and why do you think he's sort of back to where he once was?
So as it's told to us, he really did have an injury last year that he had to battle through that hurt his summer training, and then I think he actually had surgery, and then he just never got in a groove. And then we've seen in the playoffs he's had great games and then a 4 or 5 goal against game, and you're just like, and Hellebuck, I think, has done the same thing. It's hard to be a goalie in the playoffs, but it's like hard to explain what's going through his head on those. And then even in the Finland game, he gave up 6, I believe, on Friday, and then came back against Chicago and gave up 1. So that's goaltending. I mean, it's hard to do. I will say that he very much wants to be on the USA team for 4 Nations, and he sees this today, I think, as a real challenge against Hellebuck.
Mike, I wanted to ask you about Mason Marchment. First off, if he's able to play, that would be a nice little scoop for the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. But he's currently listed as day-to-day with an undisclosed injury. But, it might have to do with the fact that his dad, the late Brian Marchment, played for the Winnipeg Jets. But no, it's obviously not just that.
No.
He was a fan favorite here. But no, he had his big breakout season last year with 53 points. If you want to call it that, a breakout season, he's already established himself as a good NHLer. But do you think he gets enough credit, not just around the league? Because I kind of hate when, like, we hear that a lot here in Winnipeg, that Kyle Connor's underrated or Nikolai Ehlers is underrated. So I'm not going to ask you if you think he's underrated, but maybe specifically on this team, because they have so many good players like Jason Robertson, Rupe Hintz, Tyler Seguin, Jamie Benn, Stankoven, Wyatt Johnson. Like there's a reason why a lot of people picked Dallas to win the Stanley Cup at the beginning of the season. But do you think he's appreciated enough, maybe outside of some of the more established names on the Dallas Stars? Because I look at him, and if he's in the lineup, that's something that Jets definitely have to game plan for.
Yeah, he is. I don't want to say a unicorn, but he is that element on this team, that physical element among the forwards that Jamie Benn still does it, but not a whole lot of other forwards do. And then the other thing is, and I call him just a high event player.
Yeah,
he's so unpredictable. He'll have a great play on a shift, and then 10 seconds later, he'll take a penalty. He's kind of unpredictable. And so when he's on the ice, that does make his line a little harder to defend, I think. And then that line has been the best line on the team this year. Duchesne's off to a great start. Sagan's been hurt, but when he plays, he's been really good. And I don't know on Marchment if he's playing today. He's been practicing. He's been skating. Because it's an afternoon game, we won't get to see him at the morning skate. I kind of lean towards he probably will play. The injury he got in Finland was in the second game. But he's had a week to recover from that. I think he should be okay.
Mike, I have to ask you about Jim Nill, because I feel like he doesn't get enough credit for what he's able to do. And we always talk about Winnipeg as a draft and develop team, and the players come up through the system. But you look, I mean, I asked you about Logan Stankoven, Maverick Bourque, Rupe Hintz, Jason Robertson, Miro Heiskanen, and Thomas Harley, Esa Lindell, Wyatt Johnston, all drafted by Dallas up through the system. I mean, how much pride does this organization take in doing that? Because to my mind, I actually think they're one of the best in the NHL at drafting players, developing players, and getting them into the big club.
Yeah, it is what he is. So he will tell us that he's just an old scout. And I mean, as he worked his way up through Ottawa and Detroit, he was a player personnel guy. I mean, he was officially the assistant GM in Detroit, but he was the guy running the scouting department. And he brought Joe McDonnell with him from Detroit, and he's been just a great find because he's really good in Ontario. And so then when you get a guy like Wyatt Johnston after COVID, when Wyatt Johnston hadn't played at all, that's because Joe McDonnell was scouting him 2 years earlier. And, so little things like that. And then Stankoven, that's kind of funny because he played for Kamloops. Well, Tom Ghilardi owns Kamloops. And so if anybody knew anything about Stankoven, you're like, well, kind of the Stars might know what's going on out there. So some of this has been a little bit of luck, but what Jim does is he concentrates on the basics. And it's kind of what he did his whole career. So he knows how to do it. And then they've done a really good job. Neil Graham down in Texas has done a great job of taking these players and turning them into good players. I think Thomas Harley's the best example. So he got kind of swept in the COVID thing. He was in the bubble in Edmonton when the Stars went to the finals, and then went back, then, came back up, and he just wasn't doing anything. And 2 years ago, Jim and everybody said, no, he's going to go to the minors. And he played in the minors for 60 games. It wasn't this come up, come back. And he had already played like 35, 40 NHL games. And they just said, fix your game, get better. And Neil Graham and the coaching staff down there really helped him. And he came back last year, and I can't remember what his numbers were. 15 goals, right? And 40 or 50. I mean, he was in the top 20, I think, in defense.
15 and 32.
Yeah. So he was in the top, 20. To do that in his quote, basically his rookie year, it was really impressive.
Mike Heika is our guest on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show presented by Play Now. Mike covers the Dallas Stars for DallasStars.com, longtime reporter for the Stars. Mike, Matt Duchene, where does he fall in the bad decisions made by a team, good fortune made by another team rankings? I mean, it seems like this is just, he's found a seamless fit with the Dallas Stars and really cost nothing on the grand scheme of things to acquire and then to re-sign for $3 million, given the numbers he's been putting up.
Yeah, everything I've heard in Nashville is that he was a really good guy. He loved it. I know he loves Nashville, and does not say a negative thing about him, even with the buyout. But I think it's interesting. So we had Val Nichushkin, and same thing. Is that a bad? They bought him out. They had to pay money to send Val Nichushkin away. If you want to think about a bad, decision, but I don't think Val Nichushkin would have been Val Nichushkin had he not been bought out and sent to another team. It lit a fire under him. We got his priorities in line to an extent, at least.
Yeah, right.
But it's the same thing with Duchesne. Now, Duchesne came off a really good year and then had an okay year in Nashville. So he clearly, he's only 33, so he still has the ability to do these things. But getting the opportunity to come to this team focused him. And it was interesting during the playoffs last year because he's played 14 years or 1,000 games, whatever it was. And he looks up at me and goes, "Yeah, this is the first time I'm in the conference finals." And I'm like, "What? You played for Colorado? You've been on a lot of good teams." He goes, "No." And then you look at his playoff history, and it was not good. And so the fact that they have an opportunity to be there to play those games, he's really pumped about it. And then the other thing is he's really mature. His brain never stops working. And so that can be a bad thing. You can try to do too much. You can feel like, I got to earn my money. So the fact that one, he doesn't have that money thing on his shoulders. And two, he's a second line center and he can just relax. And, if he goes 5 games and doesn't have a goal or point or whatever, it's okay. He'll be fine. Team's still winning. And he's really done a good job of being calm about everything and mature, I guess is the word I'm using. And he's been great. I hope he plays a great game today because the games that we've been able to watch, he's one of those guys you go, "Oh, that's Matt Duchesne." I haven't seen him for a while. So it would be a great thing to have it and do that on a nice stage like this.
Mike, I wanted to ask you about the Dallas Stars fourth line, and it's not just because the name of my fantasy playoff team last year was Stop the Steal because I took Sam Steele. It's not just for that reason, but it's because you look at Sam Steele, you look at Maverick Bourque, you look at Colin Blackwell. Like Sam Steele is a guy, Dave and Drew know this, of course, but this is a guy who put up 130 points with Regina in the WHL. Maverick Bourque, Dave follows the AHL more than any of us. And, he was a player that was so dangerous last year for the Texas Stars, over a point per game player. Colin Blackwell is no slouch. That's a good fourth line. I think the Jets have a pretty good fourth line with Rasmus Kupari and Morgan Barron and Alex Iafallo, but that might be the most talented fourth line in the league. But what have you seen from them early on this season?
Yeah, we were talking about this about 2 or 3 weeks ago. As much as you want to give Jim Nill credit for amateur scouting, they've really done a good job pro scouting too. So when you look at a guy like Sam Steele, who you look at Minnesota's lineup and you look at their budget problems and you're like, how do they just let him walk at 25 or 26 or whatever he was when they let him walk? You're like, this is ridiculous. And he fits really well in that team and he makes whatever, $850,000 million bucks. And then Colin Blackwell has come in and the same thing. I mean, maybe he wasn't the right fit. He's not a huge player or anything like that, but he's smart. He plays well. He knows his role. He fits on that line. And then, Dodonov has been another one. That's a Pete guy who's played down there. And he's been really good too. So those are 3, pickups from the pro scouts. And Maverick, I'm really interested to see what they do with Maverick because in a perfect world, I think him and Logan play beside each other. And then maybe you move Wyatt Johnston up to the top line because they're still working on the lines right now. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Maverick Bourque. And I will say this, he is not assimilated as easily as Logan did. It looks like it's a little bit harder for him to play the NHL game. So that, he's still very young and very new to this. So that'll be an interesting thing to watch him go. But yeah, if he's on the fourth line, that's a really good, player to have on there.
Mike, we use the word measuring stick game and that sort of thing. Are the players in Dallas, are they looking at this as a measuring stick game? Are they looking at the Winnipeg Jets as a team they want to knock off so they can kind of claim that spot as the best team in the Central?
Yes. I think one of the problems with Florida is they didn't have the relationship with Florida to see that as a measuring stick game. They have the relationship with Winnipeg to see this as, you play them 5 times a year. And you look up the standings and this is a very division-centric league. They make it important. And so you need to win your division. Although the funny thing is, Stars win the division and play Vegas in the first round. So I'm sure Winnipeg will win a division and get Edmonton in the first round or something like that. just how the playoffs work here. But yes, you look at the division, you look at teams you know. The other thing is respect. I really do believe that Winnipeg doing this, they respect that very much rather than a team from the East that they don't really know much about how they were built and what they went through. I mean, they love Bones in Dallas. They love what Bones did there. I think they see all the fingerprints on it and go back to, Ottinger versus Hellebuck. And some of the other battles we've had in these games. Jason Robertson has played well against this team, and he's not putting the puck in the net right now. So does that stir any memories for him? There's storylines there that you don't get when you're playing a Florida. And so, yeah, I do think they very much see this as a measuring stick game.
Last one for you, Mike. For a number of years, large number of years, you didn't talk about the Dallas Stars without talking about Jamie Benn. Now, this interview, I think we've gone about 20 or so minutes, and this is the first time we've mentioned Jamie Benn. He had the great day in the face-off circle on Thursday against the Chicago Blackhawks. We touched on that earlier in the show.
Is 16 for 16 good, Mike? I'm not sure if that's good.
It's funny. He said he lost a couple. He goes, he got the home ice advantage. But I said, okay, so 14-2. I guess that was a pretty good day too.
That's right. But having him sort of next to the young guys in Wyatt Johnson and Logan Stankoven, and just him being that veteran presence, it just seems like the Dallas room would be the perfect mix of the veteran guys who've been through it all, Ben, Sagan, Duchesne, and then that young up-and-coming wave to get to be mentored and learn from these guys. Is that the sort of the vibe there, that Jamie Benn is the elder statesman who can gather the youngins around his knee and tell them the stories about how you have to win in this league and what you have to do to survive in this league?
Yeah, and it's not telling them so much, although he's actually more talkative with them than he is with us. I don't know if you've ever seen his interviews, but they can be very brief. But what he does, I think, is set an example. I was talking to Wyatt Johnston the other day, because this is the first year he's not living with Joe Pavelski. So the first 2 years of his career, he lived at Joe Pavelski's house. He drove to the rink and back. He watched him prepare. And he said, I do miss that. He goes, I need to take whatever I've learned from him and build on it on my own. But it was something to have it there every day, every game. You could, have just a chat with him about what was going on. And I think Jamie is a similar type of personality. It's not so much the chatting, but it's the example of, this is what Jamie does to get ready. This is how focused he is. This is how much he wants to win. If you look back at our media photo album, it's him sitting in the locker room after the Tampa Bay loss. And he didn't take his clothes off for what seemed like a half hour. I wasn't there, but obviously we had camera people up in Edmonton. And, it was gut wrenching. Mm-hmm. And then when they lost to Vegas in the conference finals, same thing. When they lost last year to Edmonton, I don't want to put words in their mouth, but I think they thought they had a real chance to win it. They thought they were going to go through Edmonton. They looked at Florida. Pete and Paul Maurice know each other. I think they really felt we're just as good as Florida. And so when they lost to Edmonton, again, he just reflected the pain of it all. And so now all that scar tissue is still there. It's driving him to, try and win it all this year. And I do think that radiates to his teammates. It radiates to guys like Duchesne, who, again, same thing. As much as he's not a young kid, he hasn't been through this before. Last year was his first year. And then when you get to the young kids, they definitely pick up on it. And guys like Sam Steele and Mason Marchment and Colin Blackwell, they all look at him and go, okay, I'm following that guy. So yes, whatever he has, his aura is important to what they have here.
Mike Heika is a reporter for the DallasStars.com. He's been a good friend of the show for many years. We'll let you go, Mike. We know that you got a hit with Sarah Orlesky coming up, so we'll let you get ready for that. Yeah. And we appreciate.
And I was telling you, Mike,
us.
We don't want to upset Sarah. That's the last thing that we want to do. So
yeah.
We made sure that we got you out.
I don't think Sarah ever gets upset. She's like the nicest person in the world.
She is the
So
nicest
it'll be
person
fun.
in the world. You're right about that. Mike, enjoy today's game. It's going to be a dandy between the Jets and the Stars. Thanks so much for joining us. Great to see you again.
Thanks, and good luck. Hopefully we'll see you in the future.
Yeah, we'll see you again
Cheers,
soon.
Mike.
Take care, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. Bye.
Bye. There he goes, Mike Heika. Great guy. He's been with us for so many years.
Nobody knows the Stars like Mike. He knows
It's
more
true.
than anybody. That's why we always have him on. And he's just we've got to know him over the years and seen him around Canada Life Center or on the road, stuff like that. So yeah, nobody's better than Mike.
That's very true. We'll take a break. 25 minutes past the top of the hour. Much more to come here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show presented by Play Now. The link for the merchandise store has been updated. Go to illegalcurve.com. Just click merchandise. It's up at the top. You might even just say merch. Does it say merch or merchandise, Dave? He
Merch.
doesn't know. Dave doesn't know. He runs the website. He doesn't know.
We already have an order. Shout out to our boy Sean in the Interlake. I believe he's in Gimli. Yeah, I know he's in Gimli. So shout out to Sean. He just ordered a half zip, and shout out to anybody else who has ordered. I obviously don't see the orders coming in. I'm sure we're going to be sold out by the end of the show.
I don't even think there is a sellout. So just keep ordering is the point of it. Go to illegalcurve.com, click merch. You can buy your Illegal Curve merchandise today up until November the 17th. So act now. Supplies are running out, and we'll throw in a free waffle maker as well. We actually won't, so don't even hold me to that. Illegal Curve Hockey Show rolls on this Saturday morning. Thanks, everybody.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now, you might have questions like,
Do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Center. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Center. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in two unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal, starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
Bottom of the hour. Woo! Woo, this has flown by so far. 90 minutes in here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mindell, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg. Big thanks to Kevin Sawyer. Big thanks to Mike Heika for joining us so far this morning on the show. Great insight into the Winnipeg Jets. Great insight into the Dallas Stars. Going to be a fun one this afternoon in downtown Winnipeg. Just a hell of a sports day. You got the Jets and the Stars. You got the Bombers and the Riders. You got the Moose and the Stars. I'm sure I'm missing a lot of other great things, but a fun day in the world of sports for those of us in Winnipeg.
Let's hear in the chat, Drew, how about who's going to both Jets and Bombers games? I always like that's another level of respect. Like if you go to both games in one day, that really proves that you're a super fan. I mean, obviously a lot of people will watch the games on TV, but let's hear it in the chat. Who's going to the Jets and Bombers games today?
There you go. Mention it in the chat if you are. You can definitely do it. It's a bit of a quick turnaround. You got to go from one to the other, but I'm sure there'll be more than one person who's making the trek from downtown Winnipeg to the University of Manitoba campus. You know, this is an exciting game. I do think so. I mean, there's, you talk about through 82 games, there's games that are really, it becomes a bit of a slog. I don't think this is going to be one of those games. Not to say that it's going to be a one-sided contest one way or the other. We have, of course, no idea what the result is. But these are two teams who definitely are looking at each other as a benchmark. I never bought the revenge storyline on Thursday against the Colorado Avalanche, because that wasn't Colorado Avalanche. That was a shed or a shred of their usual self, given how banged up they were. You look at Dallas.
A shed or a shred?
A shred. The shred. Sorry, I forgot the R there initially. I was thinking about the shed in my backyard, and as opposed to shredded cheese, which is what I normally think about. But the Jets and the Stars, again, you look at these two teams. I just think that this is going to be a really good battle, especially when you put the historical context is there as well. In that, if the Jets are able to overcome the Dallas Stars, defeat their division rivals, sixth straight win against the division rival team, they will become that historic team with 14 wins in 15 games, Ezzy.
The thing with the Dallas Stars is this is the first time the Jets have met a team that's as equally as deep as them. I think you would agree with that. All due respect to the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Dallas Stars are a more complete team than the Toronto Maple Leafs. Look, I think the Leafs, they're easily going to finish, top 2, top 3 in their division and make the playoffs. But this Dallas Stars team, what they offer, and Drew mentioned this, this is the one advantage they have is their defense, right? And they went out and they acquired Matt Dumba. And I guess if you want to look at that as a replacement for Ryan Suter, you can. I mean, Matt Dumba's playing on the top pair with Miro Heiskanen. We know the other names, Esa Lindell. Thomas Harley is a guy who quietly, what did he have? 45, 46 points last year. Like, he quietly had a breakout season for the Stars. And that's, I think, a testament to how good Miro Heiskanen is. He's easily a top 10 defenseman in the league. I would even listen to a top 5 argument, but maybe that's another segment for another time. But they're just so deep, and they can hurt you in a variety of different ways, similar to the Jets. And the thing is, this year they have 2 goaltenders that can give them excellent goaltending. Jake Ottinger, Drew mentioned it. I mean, Hellebuck and Ottinger, I think we would be shocked if either of those guys wasn't on Team USA's roster for the Four Nations tournament. Now
they're both on the roster, barring an injury. There's no question about it. Because,
and now the third goalie, that's where it gets more interesting, because Jeremy Swayman hasn't had as good of a start as he did obviously last year. But Thatcher Demko, it's going to be tough to keep him off. Yeah, but he's probably not going to be injured come February.
I don't think that it's going to be Demko. I'll be shocked. I think it's Ottinger. I think it's Hellebuck, Ottinger, Swayman. I just don't see Demko, who's missed the first 12 games of the season, all of a sudden rushing back and then being healthy enough or wanting to put his body at risk for.
It depends. We don't know that. I mean, we don't know that. There's a lot of time to go. But yes, probably Swayman. Drew, I agree with you, is probably the front runner. And, we're getting a little off topic here, though, because we're talking about the Jets and the Stars. But I think that, this is a big test. Just like the Toronto Maple Leafs were a big test, just like the Colorado Avalanche were a big test. And in both of those games, they were close games. So I think we'd all agree, I don't think this is going to be a lopsided game, where it shouldn't be, because the Stars are coming in here desperate. They lost those 2 games in Finland. Then they beat Chicago. They're expected to beat Chicago, though. And so this is a team that knows, no better time to start closing that 10-point gap than right now, right, Dave? So, it should be very interesting. I imagine that you're going to see the Lowry line go against the top line Rupe Hintz, Dadonov, and Jason Robertson in that Duchesne line with Tyler Seguin, and whether it's Mason Marchment or whoever's on that second line, that's going to be a tough line, whether it's the Scheifele line that goes up against that line or the Nemesnikov line. There's a lot of weapons, and we talked about the fourth line, right, with Sam Steele and Maverick Bourque and Colin Blackwell. That's a workman-like line, but it's also a very talented line. So it's going to be a big test, just like Colorado was.
Let me ask you this, Dave. We saw Scott Arniel go to the line blender when things weren't working for the Jets against the Avs. He went to the line blender, in that second period, just in the third period, just to try and get something going because the ice was so tilted one way. How long of a leash do you think he has today for the current makeup of the forward lines if you see them struggling, if he sees them struggling through the first 10, 12, 14 minutes of the first period today? You are on mute, so I'll let you unmute yourself before you start talking.
I knew that. I was just waiting for you to finish talking, Drew, and then I wasn't going to interrupt you. Try and allow people to speak.
Drew, let Dave handle his own mute button. He knows how to use his tools.
There we go. Look, one of the things that Scott Arniel was talking about yesterday when he was asked that question specifically, Drew, about changing things up to try and, again, like I said, by Mike McIntyre, the Winnipeg Free Press, that idea of you made a change to a winning formula. Now, they were winning because of Connor Hellebuck, not because of the lines, because as we talked about, Colorado really took it to them, especially in that third period. I think at one point they were being outshot like 14-2 or something of that nature. Mm-hmm. So it was disproportionate in terms of control of the puck in the third, especially. In the second, I think it finished at 9-9. But the fact is that Colorado definitely took it to them. But Scott Arniel talked about it. He doesn't like to make the change, and he doesn't like to make the change just for the sake of making the change. Now, he'll do it if he wants to, get something going, or if necessity, right? If you have a lot of PK or PP. One thing this Jets team has done, relatively speaking, they did it against Colorado until the last minute, and it was a good move because the Colorado's power play is the second most lethal power play in the NHL, just behind the Winnipeg Jets. I think they were clicking at like 37%. One of the things I was going to ask Mike about, I didn't get a chance, but surprisingly to me, is the Dallas Stars power play is actually just 18th in the NHL. Yeah. So given that they have as much firepower as they do, it's a little surprising that they don't have quite the same, level of lethalness to their power play. But, Jets similarly were, a very good team in terms of their power play their players, and yet their power play wasn't very good last year. So that's the one area I think that's interesting for the Jets, but staying disciplined, that's going to be huge. And you want to, of course, see, as you said, Drew, strength versus strength. Can your power play beat the PK of, a top 4 PK in the NHL in Dallas? So that's going to be a real fascinating battle. And I think, I don't want to overuse the expression, but I think it's going to be a chess match. I really do. I think it's, one thing that's about Scott Arniel, like, you don't want to get too bogged down in the details and trying to line match, but he does want to obviously get the preferential face-offs when he can get his guys out there. And we've seen him do that. So I don't expect him to go, even if it's not working. I mean, again, if you're getting blown out, fine. But I don't think
if you're getting blown out, it doesn't matter.
Right. But what I'm saying is, like, in terms of making changes, at that point, it doesn't really make a difference. But ultimately, I don't think that he's going to be quick to do it, unless he just sees, again, for the second game in a row, it's a continuation of not having success. But one thing with this Jets club, and like I said, we talked to Mark Scheifele and Mason Appleton yesterday about it. They recognize even if they win, they didn't win the game in the manner in which they've become used to winning hockey games. That was reliance on Connor Hellebuck. And again, you don't apologize for having the best goaltender in the entire league for what he does and what he's able to do in terms of keeping you guys in games and, helping you bank 2 points. But from that perspective, I just think that this team, I expect them to be much more Detroit-like in their response game to Dallas, the game they're going to have to get up for, than I would what we saw from Toronto, and a continuation of that in today's game.
Yeah, to your point, and Ezzy, I want you in on this as well. To your point, the Jets have really not had 2 below average games in a row this season. The Toronto game, it was obviously below average, except on the power play, which was exceptional. And then they followed it up by just demolishing Detroit. We haven't seen them sort of string together really more than a period and a half of poor play all in one. So the Dallas game or the Colorado game was the anomaly, and it'll be interesting to see, going from playing poorly against Toronto to playing well against Detroit. Well, you should play well against Detroit. Detroit's not a great hockey team. Playing poorly against Colorado it's different against Dallas because Dallas is a damn good hockey team. So it'll be interesting to see how the Jets come out, how they respond, and how they react to the poor performance on Thursday night. A poor performance, albeit in a winning cause. That's the sort of the mindset and the lens we have to look at everything through. Poor performance, but still in the win column.
Right. And Dave mentioned the Stars power play is not maybe where you'd like to see it. And it's also two teams that don't take a lot of penalties. So that just means that you want even more importance placed on the Jets 5-on-5 play. And, you know, it hasn't been fantastic, guys, the last couple of games. Like, let's not forget that the Utah game was a little bit of a grinder. And, you know, it took a Nito Niederreiter goal in the third period to really separate the Jets from Utah. That was a tight one. I mean, Utah was in that hockey game. We talked about, remember those saves that Connor Hellebuck made on Clayton Keller in the second period, right? So I think in this game, you know, you're going to have a lot more pressure on the Perfetti, Nemestikov, Ehlers line. Like, that's something I'm going to be curious to see. Are we going to see that line oftentimes against the Wyatt Johnston, Logan Stankoven, and Ben line? Are we going to see it more maybe against the Duchesne, Seguin, Marchment line? That is, if Marchment plays. We'll have to wait and see. But I think the Perfetti, Nemestikov, Ehlers line, that line's been a little bit quiet. Obviously, Ehlers had the really good scoring chance in the third period. Remember when Appleton fed him in front of the net? So we'll see, you know, if that line can do a little bit more. Scheifele, Connor Velarde, they were fine last game. And obviously, the Lowry line was the best line for the Jets. So we'll see what happens here. You know, I think every one of us is expecting a close game, and it ultimately could come down to a power play goal or, you know, a good penalty kill here. And, you know, this is going to be a team they're going to be battling with. And this is, you know, when you talk about games that are being circled, I agree with Kevin Sawyer. I'm more excited for this game than I was the Colorado game, because I still, like Drew said, with no Jonathan Drouin, no Valerie Nichushkin, no Ross Colton, we know there's more guys, Miles Woods out of the lineup. I mean, that Avalanche team was not a full-strength Avalanche team. This is a full-strength Stars team, and it's a full-strength Jets team. Minus Ville Heinola, right? So yeah, maybe Dave will give a little update, but I think he's still a few weeks away, right, Dave?
Well, we're never given timelines, and to be honest with you, Jaret Anderson-Dolan, who was also like Ville Heinola in yellow non-contact, he ditched the yellow non-contact as for a regular jersey, and then he ditched the Jets because he was loaned to the Moose after healing up from his broken foot. So Ville Heinola expected a little bit longer just because, you know, he was dealing with the surgery and obviously of the ankle and all that stuff. So we'll see exactly what happens with him. But as far as we know, he's still in yellow non-contact, and you know, a ways away would be the way I'd put it before, you know, Ville Heinola is given a chance. But, you know, it's an interesting one as in that regard, because what are you going to do with you still have to, even if they want to put him on a conditioning assignment, you have to make a roster spot available. So it's going to set up an interesting situation for the Jets, because are they going to, you know, assign Dylan Coghlan or try and put him through waivers and get him down to the Moose? Or what are they going to do? Because they have to make a move. Even if they put Ville Heinola on a conditioning assignment, you still have to have a spot for him on the main roster.
You would think, Dave, that he's gonna be put on a conditional loan.
Sure, but
pardon me, a conditioning loan.
For sure, but again, like I said, even if you do,
you still have to put a guy on waivers.
You still have to put a guy on waivers. So, so from that perspective, you know, they were able to obviously the Jaret Anderson-Dolan one, because they recalled him and they put him on IR, that paused it. So his waiver status never, because of course he'd been up with them for more than a month, but it never evaporated or never elapsed, I should say. But with respect to this one, this will set up a situation, you know, whenever it is for right now,
let's go
is in yellow.
Let's stick with that, because if Drew's okay, I mean, Drew, you're the quarterback. I don't want to
go ahead. I don't want to interrupt a good conversation. We have them so rarely.
I don't think you're putting Logan Stanley on waivers, boys. I think he gets
Logan Stanley. Dylan Coghlan on waivers.
That's what I'm saying.
No question about it. This isn't a debate here.
No, I think it's something interesting to bring up. Dylan Coughlin's still a veteran defenseman. He's no slouch. So I just think look, I'm with you, Drew. I think Dylan Coghlan is the player that gets placed on waivers, because I think there's a better chance that Logan Stanley's claimed. By the way, I don't think it's completely out of the realm of possibility Coghlan is claimed, by the way.
I agree with you, for the record. I actually, he's a right shot defenseman.
Exactly.
He's well regarded. I actually think that's why they're so loath to do something because, you know, I mean, the only negative is he hasn't played a game since the preseason. So, I mean, it's been a long time since Dylan Coughlin's gotten into any game action.
And remember, Drew, the Jets have to lose one defenseman on waivers every single year.
It's a rule. This one at least isn't one that they've developed and drafted and everything else, and then they lose it.
Right.
This guy's just a guy they traded. What was it? I think it ended up being a 7th round pick or future considerations.
Yeah.
For the Coughlin trade. I mean,
I just think though that I'm with Ez. I think there's a chance he could get claimed because he's a right shot D and he was well regarded, as an option as a 7th player who could get in there if you need him and play some games for your club. But yeah, I just think it's interesting because I think that the Jets have had good health, which obviously is a good thing, and then as a result, you now have to start to make that decision. What are you going to do? Because like we said, we don't know when Ville Heinola is going to be back, but at some point he's going to be back. And when he is, again, barring another injury to somebody else, you're going to have to make room for him on your roster.
When we come back on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, more on the Jets and the Stars, and we pay tribute to a great friend of this show who announced his retirement yesterday. Much more to come. Don't go anywhere. Saturday morning, the Illegal Curve Hockey Show presented by Play Now. It rolls on in this final segment upcoming.
We want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
Do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime, visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre. Holt Dental, the new official dentist of Illegal Curve, has a philosophy rooted in 2 unyielding principles: genuinely caring about patients and providing outstanding service. Being a patient of Holt Dental means more than just checkups and treatments. It's taking the time to listen and talk to each patient so they can achieve the best long-term health, functionality, and aesthetics for their teeth, mouth, and gums. Conveniently located at Grant Park Festival on Taylor Avenue, Holt Dental is dentistry of the highest quality in a comfortable and relaxed environment. For more information, visit holtdental.ca. Oh, and there's plenty of free parking at the front door, too. Celebrating its 40th year as Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best and most affordable live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For more information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
So you're a pizza person, you married a wing person, but somehow your kids are salad people. You can't pick your fam, but you can pick your BP meal deal, starting from $18.99 for takeout or delivery at bostonpizza.com.
10 minutes before the top of the hour, welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Reminder, of course, after the Jets and the Stars, Dave M. and yours truly will be here for the Illegal Curve post-game show. We're giving Ezzy the afternoon off. He's worked hard as of late, so he gets an afternoon for himself.
For the record, I'm not doing the game because I will be parenting. I won't be able to watch the game, so I'm going to be with my kids. Otherwise,
okay.
I would be doing the show.
We know.
For the
We
record.
know. I'm just
I didn't
giving you a hard
ask for a day off. I know some people think I get mandatory days off. Not true. Dave M does not give me any vacation time.
Yeah, no, this is as he gets mandatory minimum sentences is what he gets. He doesn't get mandatory days off. But no, anyways, Dave and I will be back this afternoon. Thank you to discuss the Jets and the Dallas Stars. That'll be around 4:30, 4:45, right around that time frame. It should be a good one, discussing everything that happens in this afternoon's contest. The Illegal Curve Hockey Show, of course, presented by our friends at Play Now. Don't bet on illegal sites. Bet with Play Now instead. Manitoba's local, legal, and secure gambling site. 18+. Enjoy responsibly. We'd be remiss if we didn't acknowledge the retirement of a very good friend of this show, Eric Duhatschek. And anybody who's following this program, anybody who is, followed hockey in Canada for the last 20, 30, 40 years, know that Eric Duhatschek was almost the dean of Canadian hockey writers. His time, of course, in Calgary, covering the Flames. Then he went more national with the Globe and Mail. Previously worked for the Hockey News, Sports Illustrated, and has been with the Athletic for the last 7 or so years. Eric announced yesterday that his retirement is effective immediately. He's been a great friend of this show. When this show started, every time we would do a season preview show or a playoff preview show, we always called on two people. Eric Duhatschek was one of those guys. We called on him to join us to discuss the Western Conference playoff matchups, the Western Conference season preview, and he was always so willing and so gracious with his time. Those segments used to go 30, 40 minutes, some of them. We blew the clocks out in the old radio station. Time was not a factor when you got to sit and talk about hockey with Eric Duhatschek, and so we wish him all the best moving forward in his retirement. To him, to Lisa Dillman, his partner, they're great together, great friends of the show. So we had to say a goodbye and a thank you to our good friend Eric Duhatschek on the occasion of his retirement.
Absolutely, and I'll echo your thoughts, Drew. I mean, long before we did this show, we were fans of Eric Duhatschek's work. Everybody remembers him, seeing him back in the day on Hockey Night in Canada, right? But like, there's
really, on the hot stove.
Absolutely, with Al Strachan, right? Bring back the old days. But if you were wondering just how long Eric Duhatschek was in journalism, by the way, if you're an Athletic subscriber or if you'd like to subscribe to the Athletic to read this, he had a great final article, and he talks about when he entered journalism, they wrote on typewriters. So that shows you how long Eric Duhatschek has been in journalism. But yeah, I just picking up on what Drew said, fantastic career. He's obviously already in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Kevin Allen was the other person who we used to have on to cover the Eastern Conference. I'm not sure if you mentioned that, Drew.
I didn't, but yes, it was, of course, Kevin Allen on the East.
Yeah.
He was the writer for USA Today for so long, based in Michigan, and then it was Eric Duhatschek on the West to discuss the Western Conference playoffs and the Western Conference season.
And the thing, as you guys know, is before we were on TSN 1290 radio, we were on Red River Radio, and those guys would give us their time and join us and talk hockey with us. So for us at that time, it was long before we established ourselves as whatever we are right now. But those guys used to always give us their time for the season preview show, and they were a big part of every season. So Eric, great career, and obviously, well-deserved retirement. And if you have a chance to check out that article in The Athletic that he wrote kind of as a farewell, it's definitely worth your time.
And I can see all of you funny chatters talking about, when am I retiring? Well, the answer is never. I'm going to haunt your dreams for years to come, even if this show isn't broadcast. Every time you say Mindell, Mindell, Mindell in the mirror, it's going to be like Beetlejuice, and I'm just going to appear and haunt you at all times. And Kenny, that is funny. First, my eyesight, but it's true. My eyesight went when I was about 8 years old. I'm actually completely blind without these glasses. I cannot see a thing. I would be legally blind without them, and then my hairline, but of course the mustache stays strong. That's the important part as we keep rolling.
Drew, you've been half retired for like 15 years.
Yeah. I wish. Not a chance. I can't get away from you guys. That's the key of the matter. As I mentioned, the post-game show, that'll be 4:45 this afternoon. The Jets and the Dallas Stars, and then of course the Bombers and the Riders at the day, filled with green opponents that will hopefully be green with envy at the end of it all, with the results that hopefully will occur particularly that of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Dave, I'm sure you got some prospect stuff for us quickly. You want to run through it before we wrap up?
Well, if you insist, I'll take a little run at it, if you will. I'll be quick though.
But don't press the button, Ezra.
Put on your antlers. It's time for the Minuk Moose Minute on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
I said don't press the button. It's not a Minuk Moose Minute.
I'm wearing the same outfit as I did in that bumper. But anyways, not a ton doing, but some OHL news. Colby Barlow, he had a goal for Oshawa, so he continues to heat up. Kieran Walton, the 2024 6-rounder, he had a goal for Sudbury. And let me tell you, he's actually, he's a big boy at 6'6", but his points per game as he are up to 1.25 from 0.66, and he's got 6 points in his last 7 games. He's a prospect that a lot of folks are enjoying watching in Sudbury. And of course, Kevin, he is him. He had a goal and assist for Niagara, and he continues to produce. He's 7th in the OHL points race, and he's actually first when it comes to shots in the season. He's got 86, and I know Drew enjoys it when I talk about how many shots a player has. And then over to the WHL, Braden Yager, he 2023 first rounder, had a goal and an assist for Moose Jaw. He just continues to produce, and even though his points per game is slightly below what it was last year, worth noting that Moose Jaw is a much weaker team with the graduations they had this year. So the Warriors are not quite the same team. We'll see if Yager gets traded to a contender for a boatload of picks for Moose Jaw. But that's your update. And then a couple of the guys were in action and didn't get anything in Jacob Julian for London, and of course Zach Naring for Western Michigan. But another day, Saturday night, we'll have more action, more prospects will be in action, as he may be Marcus Lupinen. I don't know if Victoria is playing, but we'll find out. And if he is, always in the notes on the morning papers, and of course on one of these broadcasts, we'll try and bring you guys an update. And of course, the Moose. We'll have all the coverage of the Moose game. They're playing at 7:00 in Texas. So, one of these days, boys, I will get whether it's the Wild and the Jets and Moose, or it's the Stars and the Jets and the Moose, we'll get an afternoon game for the Moose in Winnipeg, and then it's followed by a night Jets and Stars game or Jets and Wild game in the evening. So we'll see if we can eventually get one of those, wrangle up one of those.
You're talking about a double header within the same arena. Is that your lifelong dream? Is that what?
Well, it is.
Is that what you're excited for?
I mean, I would wake up. I'd sleep in the press box, and I would just wake up, and I'd spend the whole day. It'd be my, people talk about Halloween, Christmas, whatever you want to call it. That'd be like the dream. But I suspect the only way I'm going to get something like that is if the Jets are in like a Heritage Classic or some sort of outdoor tournament where you can see both teams playing over the course of a weekend.
Drew, you know what I'm excited for? I'm not sure if this is an invite, but I'm excited that Interm's got hot dogs and Smokies ready in 5. So I have to find out. I'll probably maybe send him a DM, find out what area of the city he's in, and I'll bring my mustard.
That's nice of you. You're going to supply your own mustard. That's considerate. Some people might bring beer. Some people might bring, alcohol. You're just going to bring a big jar of mustard is what you're going to.
It is 11 in the morning, so I'm not going to crack open beer. I usually wait till 11:30 in the morning to crack open my beer.
But is it a Dijon? Is there a granular mustard you're bringing, or is it just going to be your standard sort of yellow mustard?
Yeah, I would bring the French's and then maybe bring a Dijon mustard. I mean, I don't want to seem to be too bourgeoisie. I'm usually just
you're literally in a basement that doesn't have drywall on the walls. I don't think that anybody's thought of that you're being too bourgeoisie. I got to tell you, that hasn't come to mind. Maybe a little less proletariat is what we could use from you in this case.
Proletariat? What is this, first year sociology at University of Winnipeg, Drew?
You're the one saying the bourgeoisie. The proletariat and the bourgeoisie go hand in hand together.
Yeah, you're the bourgeoisie, Drew.
Thank you very much, because I have drywall. That's it. We can't beat a bourgeoisie proletariat fight to wrap up this Saturday edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mindell, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg, thank you for joining us. We also thank Mike Heika and Kevin Sawyer for joining us. If you haven't already done so, smash the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the podcast, and tell us everything you think about this show. Reminder reminder, the merchandise store is open for the next week and 1 day. That's 8 days in total. IllegalCurve.com. Click on merch at the top of the page. Get yourself some Illegal Curve gear before the Christmas season comes. Big thanks to our friends at Play Now for their title sponsorship of the show. In addition, all of our friends at Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, Holt Dental, Boston Pizza, City Place, and Seagram's support these fine businesses because of their continued support of Illegal Curve Hockey. We'll be back after the Jets and the Stars for the Illegal Curve post-game show right around 4:30, 4:45 thereabouts. Be sure to come back and join us then. Until then, thanks everyone for joining us on this Saturday morning. Have a great one. For Dave Minuk, for Ezra Ginsburg, I'm your host, Drew Mindell. If it's Saturday, it's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.